box of socks when my aunt handed me a small gift and smiled. I hope the $1,200 I've been sending every month helped you get through school. I froze mid-smile. What money? The room fell silent, like someone had pressed mute on the holiday cheer. My mom's coffee mug slipped from her hands, shattered on the floor. My dad's face went pale, and my aunt, blinking in confusion, tilted her head. Then, who's been cashing the checks in your name? My name is Lauren, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the moment I asked that question, the entire illusion of my loving family began to shatter, one broken ornament at a time. My aunt looked down at her phone, scrolling quickly. I mailed them here, every month, for 2 years, all addressed to you. She turned the screen to me. There it was. My name, my handwriting, my aunt's warm messages. I never saw any of it. My heart started pounding. I looked at my parents, my mother wide-eyed, my father suddenly fidgeting. They said nothing, because they couldn't. That's when it clicked. Why I'd been working 3 jobs. Why I skipped meals to afford books. Why my financial aid had almost been revoked. Why every time I'd asked for help, they'd said, money's tight. Because they'd been taking it. My aunt stood up, stunned. You mean to tell me you never got a single check? I shook my head. I thought you stopped caring. She turned to my parents. Then who the hell? My mother stammered. We didn't want to burden her with taxes. She was already so overwhelmed. My dad added, we put some of it toward bills. It's not what it looks like. I stood slowly. It looks exactly like what it is. They had stolen from me, robbed me of 2 years of help, made me beg strangers for shifts while lying through their teeth under our roof. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply walked to my room, closed the door, and started packing. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's leaving them wondering how long you've known, and how far you'll go to get it all back. I packed 1 suitcase. Just one. No drama. No shouting. Just folded clothes, my laptop, and the last remnants of trust they hadn't already spent. Downstairs, I could hear them scrambling. My mom whispering harshly, my dad pacing like the floor would tell him what to do. I walked down with my coat on and my bag over my shoulder. My aunt stood in the middle of the room, arms crossed, her face unreadable. She turned to me. Where are you going? Somewhere they can't touch me. She didn't hesitate. I'll drive. My mom reached out as I passed. Lauren, please. It wasn't like that. We used the money for the family. I stopped, turned to her slowly. I am family. And then I looked at my dad. Were the vacations worth it? The new furniture? The lies? He didn't answer. Couldn't. Because the truth was written all over the receipts my aunt started digging up. See, she was smart. Meticulous. Each check was trackable. Each one signed and cashed. But never by me. And the signature? Not even close to mine. We went straight to the bank. The manager pulled up the images on the screen. My name forged. Every single month. The room spun. All that time, I thought I wasn't enough to be helped. But I was just stolen from. My aunt turned to me and said, you're filing a report. Right now. And for once, I didn't hesitate. Because this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't miscommunication. This was fraud. By my own parents. By people who tucked me in at night while robbing me blind. That night, I didn't sleep at her house. I planned. Every login. Every email. Every document. I needed to freeze the accounts they used under my name. And as I clicked submit on the fraud report, I whispered to myself, you built a life off my struggle. Now watch me rebuild one without you in it. The bank called 2 days later. Their tone had changed. What started as routine verification was now formal investigation. Apparently, the signature wasn't just mismatched, it was sloppily forged. And the account the checks were being deposited into? Joint. Under my father's name, with my mother as a cosigner. They didn't even try to hide it. Just tucked my future under their mattress and spent it like a bonus. The fraud team said I'd need to confirm everything in writing.
So I did.
I wrote every detail, dates, the money I was owed, even the mental toll it took. Then I sent one more message. To my parents. A single email. The bank is aware. The authorities are next. I'm pressing charges unless I get back every cent with interest. No, dear Mom. No love, Lauren. Just truth. They didn't reply. But I knew they read it. Because my dad tried calling my aunt 20 minutes later. She didn't pick up. Instead, she wired me $5,000 from her own account. For legal fees, she said. No one steals from my niece and gets away with it. And that's when it hit me. For years, I begged for approval. 4 crumbs of support. For someone in that family to fight for me. Turns out, I just had to burn the bridge to see who would jump in the water to pull me out. The next day, I met with a lawyer. She looked over the documents, the check scans, the bank statements, and said one sentence I'll never forget. This isn't just theft. This is betrayal with a paper trail. We filed. And once the notice hit my parents' mailbox, the mask finally cracked. My mom sent a message at 2 a.m. You're really going to destroy this family over a little money? To which I replied,
No.
You destroyed this family the moment you chose greed over your own daughter. She left me on read. But I wasn't done. Because I wasn't just reclaiming money. I was reclaiming every piece of power they thought I'd never find. And Christmas? They'd remember it forever. Not as the day I found out, but the day I started fighting back. The court date was set. Small claims, but what I was reclaiming wasn't just dollars. It was dignity. My aunt offered to testify. She had the receipts, the tracking numbers, even screenshots of texts where she mentioned the checks months back. Messages I'd never seen because my mother deleted them from my phone when she borrowed it to call Grandma. Everywhere I turned, there were fingerprints of betrayal. And I was done pretending it was just bad parenting. It was criminal. I walked into the courtroom with my aunt beside me and a folder full of evidence clutched to my chest. My parents looked different, smaller. My dad's arrogance shrunk behind a cheap suit. My mom's perfectly styled hair couldn't mask the twitch in her jaw. They didn't look sorry. They looked cornered. Their lawyer tried to spin it. That the money had been reallocated for household expenses. That they planned to return it. That it was all just a family misunderstanding. But when the judge asked if I'd ever given written consent to have checks in my name cashed into their account, and I said no, and showed the forged signatures, the energy shifted. The judge looked right at my parents and said, "This is not a misunderstanding. This is deliberate fraud." My mom teared up. My dad muttered something about raising her and sacrifices. And I said, loud enough for the court to hear, "You didn't raise me. You survived off me." The ruling? They had 30 days to repay every dollar, plus damages, plus a formal apology in writing. But honestly, that wasn't the real win. The real win was walking out of that courtroom, head high, while they stayed behind, silent, stunned, and stripped of their favorite weapon, control. And as we walked to the car, my aunt looked at me and said, "You didn't just win. You broke the cycle." I looked at the sky, exhaled, and whispered, "They used my name to fund their lives. I'll use their betrayal to build mine." News spread fast, like it always does when the scandal is family-shaped. By New Year's, every relative had an opinion. Some called to check in. Others sent vague messages like, "Family should stay out of court, don't you think?" But none of them had shown up when I was skipping meals to afford tuition. None of them offered a dime when I was working triple shifts while my parents cashed checks behind my back. Now, suddenly they cared? I didn't respond. Let them gossip. Let them spin it however made them sleep better. Because I was done playing the quiet daughter who absorbed shame in silence. 2 weeks later, the check arrived. A cashier's check. Every cent they owed me. Plus the damages. Plus the interest. Plus the written apology, signed by both of them, probably court-mandated, but still. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was touched. Because I remembered every night I sat in the dark, budgeting rent down to the last dollar while my parents were out buying new furniture, posting vacation selfies, clinking wine glasses paid for by my name. I deposited the check and closed the account they'd used without permission. Then I booked a trip, not to escape, but to celebrate. I stood on the balcony of a quiet cabin in Colorado, breathing in pine and snow and freedom. The air didn't taste like fear anymore. It tasted like after. After betrayal. After survival. After reclaiming every piece of my identity they tried to cash in on. I posted one photo. Just me, wrapped in a blanket, holding a mug with one visible phrase. Paid in full. No tags. No captions. But I know they saw it. Because 3 hours later, my sister texted, "Are you really this dramatic? You couldn't just talk to them?" I didn't reply. Because there's nothing left to explain when someone chooses comfort over truth. I didn't burn the bridge. They sold it for parts. And now, I was building something better. A life they couldn't buy into. A week after the post, my father emailed me. Not a call. Not a real apology. Just a 5-paragraph PR statement pretending to be remorse. "We understand your perspective and are truly sorry if you felt betrayed."
Felt.
As if betrayal was a feeling, not a fact with forged signatures and bank trails. He ended it with, "We hope one day you can forgive us, and we can go back to being a family." I read it twice, then deleted it. Because here's what they never understood. Forgiveness isn't about returning to the scene of the crime and pretending nothing happened. It's about choosing not to live in the rubble and rebuilding somewhere they can't reach. My aunt saw the email too. He'd CC'd her. She texted me 2 words. "Don't fold." And I didn't. Instead, I signed a lease on a new workspace for the nonprofit I'd been dreaming about since college. A scholarship fund for students like me. Ones who worked 2 jobs and still came home to empty fridges. Ones who were lied to, used, abandoned by the very people who were supposed to protect them. I named it the Lauren Fund. Bold, maybe. But I wasn't hiding anymore. And when the press release went out, a journalist reached out. Wanted to do a story on how betrayal built a legacy. I said yes. Not for attention. For impact. The article dropped 2 days later. Front page of the weekend section. Stolen support. Earn justice. One woman's fight to reclaim her name and help others do the same. Within 24 hours, my parents' phones were blowing up. The sympathy they tried to gather?
Gone.
The narrative they tried to twist? Unraveled. They went silent again. But I wasn't watching. I was too busy answering emails from students who finally felt seen. One message stood out. "I thought something was wrong with me. Thank you for showing me it's not weakness to walk away." And that's when I realized my revenge wasn't just winning in court. It was becoming someone they'd never be strong enough to raise. The donations started small. $25 here, $100 there. Then an alum from my old college, someone I barely remembered from class, sent $10,000 with a note. "Your story reminded me of my sister. She never made it out. You did. Keep going." I sat at my desk and cried. Not because I was sad. Because it finally made sense. All the nights I ate $8 ramen. All the textbooks I couldn't afford. All the moments I questioned my worth while my parents lived comfortably off the money meant to save me. They weren't just pain. They were foundation. Pain, stacked brick by brick into something no one could tear down again. And just like that, the Lauren Fund went viral. Students wrote from community colleges, trade schools, Ivy Leagues. Stories that sounded too much like mine to be coincidence. My parents tried to spin the narrative. They posted a photo together on Facebook, smiling, holding hands, captioned, "Forgiveness and family first. We all make a mistake. You stole your daughter's future. You didn't raise her. You robbed her." They took it down within the hour. I didn't have to say a word. The world did it for me. And while they spiraled, I flourished. I gave my first keynote at a youth conference. Spoke to a room full of teenagers who thought struggle made them small. I told them, struggle sharpens. Betrayal breaks the shell. But rebuilding? That's where power lives. I didn't need to mention my parents, but they were there in every sentence. Every truth they once buried under guilt and gaslighting, I now spoke aloud, without shame. After the talk, a girl hugged me and whispered, "I thought maybe I was crazy, but you proved I'm not alone." That's when I knew I wasn't just healing for me, I was healing for us. Every daughter who was told she was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much of a burden to believe. The truth? I was never too much. They were just never enough. It happened quietly. A letter in my mailbox, no return address, just my name in my mother's handwriting. I stared at it for a while. I didn't open it out of curiosity. I opened it because I already knew how it would end. Inside were 2 pages. The first was an apology, if you could call it that. "We never meant to hurt you. We were struggling too. We thought you'd understand when you were older." The same old gaslight, dressed in nicer words. But the second page? That was different.
A check.
For $1. Memo line. "What's left?" I laughed. Out loud. Alone. Not because it was funny. Because it was perfect. After stealing thousands. After lying to my face. After years of treating me like background noise, they still thought they had the last word. But the truth? They gave me everything. Every betrayal was a blueprint. Every stolen check was a spark. Every time they made me feel small, I quietly built something unstoppable. I framed the check, hung it in my office, right beside the first full scholarship we awarded through the Lauren Fund. Not as a reminder of what they did, but of what I survived.
And now?
I don't wait for apologies. I don't flinch at silence. I don't shrink for love that only shows up when it wants to be forgiven without accountability. I live, loudly, freely, fully, surrounded by people who don't just clap when I win. They show up when I struggle. My parents? They became a cautionary tale. The price of betrayal is steep, but the cost of underestimating me? Permanent. So this Christmas, I sat beside a tree again. But this time, I handed someone else a gift.
A check.
With their names spelled right, and love that couldn't be forged. And when they asked, "Why me?" I smiled and said, "Because someone once tried to steal my future, and now I help others reclaim theirs." Let them tell their story however they want. This one,